is up, you gorgeous, gorgeous people?
Turn your phone down.
It's not mine. Whose is it?
JR, probably.
Up, you gorgeous, gorgeous people.
Turn your phone down.
Who's on an echo?
I put him on mute.
That's awesome.
Already. He's barely in the feed and he's already on mute. Already on mute.
It is streaming on Instagram, but the proportions are really weird. So you see all of Pamela, and then you see a little side sliver of Elsie and a little side sliver of Jason.
Wow. You
Wait.
gotta love Instagram for their weird proportions on everything I post. I always get it
Can
wrong.
you rotate it?
I don't know.
Nope.
That's why
I tried to rotate
that's why
my
I
phone and it's not working.
always have to get Pamela's help.
There's my.
Oh, and there goes JR. He's
What
out.
did we do? Just threw JR out.
Get out. He did it himself.
He did.
Now
Oh,
Instagram is just seeing the little corner right there in the center of our screen and can't really see anybody. So come back, JR.
beta
Yeah.
testing at its finest right here.
That's what happens when you're the first. When you're the leader and you're the first.
That's
Hey,
right.
it's like a podcast though. They can hear it.
Dude,
'Cause certainly Instagram doesn't want to miss it.
that is such an awesome compliment to the group, to the mission, to the show.
It is. It is. It's true. It's
We're
very true.
pioneers in this shit.
I'm telling
right.
you. It's and especially it's got to be JR. JR was one of the early pioneers of this whole entire mission, so of course he's going to be involved in something brand new, and I love it. Love it.
Mhm.
I'm grateful to be here.
Same. It's good to see you guys. I felt like I was gone for too long.
Well,
You were.
yeah,
I had things
Yeah.
going on.
that's good.
Important things too. So
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Very.
but I'm glad to be back because this is also very important.
It certainly is. And you guys just don't understand that we are amongst a true healer tonight. When I think about Pamela, of course, is one of my best friends, my soul family, my soul sister. And, I'm so grateful that she gets to sit here with you all tonight because, she is just, when I think about Pamela, I think of just an authentically beautiful soul who's greatly talented, and she's just a lover of all humanity. And and she's a true lover. Like it's no, it's no BS. Like she just wants to know about everyone's experience, and from the recovery community and everything that's touched Pamela's life, she has wanted to know more about. She's a true seeker. So, I am honestly grateful to be able to have the honor to introduce her tonight. Her book, I Didn't Come This Far to Only Come This Far, is just a true inspiring story about, her life and how we all hold trauma and the ways we all go through things and how you can come back from any background and heal. So I'm so grateful to be sitting in the presence of my great friend and my other beautiful friends, Miss Pamela Topjian. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're always way too kind.
Never, not
Make me
kind
feel
enough.
so special. Thank you so much. It's funny you say that I'm so interested in everybody's story and everything. I was already asking them questions about recovery and stuff.
I
And
love
Jason
it.
was like, this might be good for when we're when we're on.
Yeah,
So,
it was
yeah.
a great question, It
She has a
was.
knack for that. A knack for that.
So yeah, I'm just honored to be here. I mean, you guys have had some really, really seriously amazing guests, and I don't know how I got so lucky to be on here as well. So thank you, everybody.
Because you're amazing, duh.
I
Right.
guess.
Right. Right.
No,
Right.
it's a great pleasure to meet you, face to face, even if it is only online, Pamela. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you guys as well. Thank you.
Well, we should probably start out a little bit with how Pamela like comes to be here with us because, you know, like Pamela hasn't necessarily had, you know, like substance abuse issues herself, but she's walked hand in hand with, you know, with people with active addiction issues in working in our field. And, you know, so she's got an amazing story. Amazing story.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
worked with detox and recovery people. I've also had I was married to an alcoholic, and then another my second marriage was to an alcoholic and was also um addicted to prescription medication, and he was ended up being abusive. And then I also have another close family member that is now free from any substance abuse for I think 11, 12 years now. And so I have some personal experience in that way with being the family member of, and then also in my nursing career, I've worked just for a short time, actually, not a whole long of a time, in detox and recovery in a few different areas of it. And just really, I'm just going to say from my own experience, it just seems like a lot of it is really corrupt. A lot of it is maybe doing more damage than helping.
Mm.
Some people, of course, have been helped even in the places that I worked. But I think more so than not has done more damage. And I hate to say that, but because I don't want to deter anybody from going to any recovery places, because I know there's some really great ones out there. But where I had worked, um, had pros and cons, of course, as they all do. But I had worked overnight shift, and so that helps a little bit because you're not in with all the other staff and everything, and you get to hear some of the stories and talk to some of the people and see the hard work that they go through. And I just think that, people don't realize how hard it is. I have been through my own breakdown and have went through my own kind of recovery. um, and I just cannot imagine years and years and years, and all of you have that experience, years of going through that recovery from, at the trauma that goes along with addiction. And oftentimes that's what's led people to addiction, is the trauma they went through. And I just can't imagine having to go through even what I had went through for many years. But then these kids mainly, I mean, there's older people too, but go through such hard work just to try to get off of the substances. And people don't realize, how sick and how hard it is for them, and then to still have to go through the rest of their life with the stigma. So I congratulate all of you guys for recovering out loud, and putting this and all the other recovery community stuff that people are doing, putting it out there, because it's so important for people to see, to hear these stories of recovery. It's amazing. And
Mm.
they need to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I want to know if you, because I know in a treatment setting, you got a lot of people that fall off. You got a lot of
Yeah.
people that run, take off, relapse, maybe even in
Yep.
house, and all that. Did you find that at all discouraging, or did you never lose your passion and resolve and continue to like have hope for people?
I would say I always had hope for anybody that came through the door, even if they came through the door and left the same, within hours.
Mm,
I always hold on to hope for everybody, but um, I did see, I didn't see anybody have any relapse in house. I did see people take off. I did not feel like anybody that was there was really getting the help that they needed. And when they left, I thought, oh, good, you didn't get stuck. I mean, this is terrible to say, but I've seen people that were in there much longer than they really needed to be because the insurance was paying. I've also seen people in there that needed more than what we had to offer, but because the insurance paid or because the parents' credit card was there for the center, just the pay is what kept them there, and they needed to be somewhere else, or they either needed more help or they didn't need this kind of help. So, so the people that left, I kind of felt like, I hope you find somewhere better. I hope you find a better place, or you find recovery in another way. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a tragic business, because
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate part, is that it is still a business, and
Yeah.
when we mix, lives and the quality of life in with a business, there's always that real gray area. I had that experience when I went to in-house treatment, when my job fired me, and I was doing really well, and it's like the first time I had hope that I could really, get through this. And when they just came to me one day and said, well, your job let you go, and so your insurance has run out. And I was like, well, do I get to finish out the month? And I just remember the counselor just shaking her head and looking so solemnly, and she's like, no, we got to put you on a plane today. And that was a very, very, I mean, I can honestly say that the hopelessness that I felt in that for the first time, I felt like I was making strides. I was beginning to understand myself, and for it to be snatched away so quickly, and this was way back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I guess. And so, I can see that there's hopelessness in that. So I too, I'm with you, Pamela. I commend, you know, every human being that even graces the doors of treatment centers, for all the nurses like you that had a heart to be there and see the people through the business. And I'm going through that an integrity moment right now with a treatment center that's here close to me, that I used to do a lot of work with. And sometimes you see that darker side and it hurts. But then when you think about how many people are suffering, and knowing that only like 1 in 10, I think Ashley has the better numbers on this, but like only 1 in 10 get the help that they need. It's a reason that I continue to do this, because there's some people that a lot of this is their recovery program. A lot of the things that we put out in the world, as being people that recover out loud, this is part of people's recovery program. And I hope that I'm always in this space in some way or another. Yeah, it's sad.
Well, that's why I like being in it in the way that I am, where it's
Mhm.
just I can meet new people and hear their stories, and I get to learn from them, and maybe they might learn from me when I
Yeah.
relate to their story. But in that kind of situation with the treatment centers, it sucks because so many of them are like contracted with other places. So
Mhm.
like typically, even if they're gonna like give you a referral to another place for different type of care, it's like a small hand selected amount of places,
Yeah.
and I don't know, man. It's like, to me, I think that it should be more individualized than that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these systems of care should be set up in a way where people are showing up and they're thoroughly assessed, and then they are referred out, to
Mhm.
get the help that they need specifically. And
Mm.
that could be, you know, based partially on the outcome of their results, but also on like their personal preferences or belief systems, or,
Sure.
Right.
whatever, uh, different strokes for different folks. And that would be impossible to do if you have this short list of partners, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then everybody wants the money, so they
Yeah.
Right.
don't want to kick them over to somebody else anyway, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
It is. It is. Mm.
Yeah, and I also saw, um, where since I worked overnights, we would have people that would come in to be admitted on my shift. And the doctor who oversaw everybody, I would have a video chat with them and they would tell me what paperwork and what boxes needed to be checked and what kind of um, assessments that we needed to do before we could let them go to bed, and
Mm.
give them a room and everything, and then finish up the assessment the next day, right? So you didn't have to do pages and pages, because so many times there would be people sitting in the chair across the desk from me that were falling asleep. It was the middle of the night, and they'd be falling asleep, or they weren't in the best mindset at that time, and maybe they did need to sleep and get some breakfast and whatever, and then come
That's
back and finish
typically
the
the
assessment.
case when you show up at treatment. You're coming down,
Right,
Yeah.
or
right,
you're still
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
right. But then the medical director would say, because they wanted their day staff had so much more to do than the night shift staff. So the medical director would go, from my experience from where I worked, the medical director would say, "No, I don't care what the doctor says. You have to do all the paperwork." So they're signing things. You're having to wake them up and they're scribbling and they don't understand what you're saying. And that you're asking a million questions and they're not fully there. And it just made me so frustrated to have to do that, um, with those people, even though the doctor, who is really the one that should be calling the shots and telling us what to do, the medical director said, "No, you have to keep them in your chair, sometimes 3 hours to get through everything." And to me, that was so wrong. And then also the medical director, and so I'm not saying any, of course, won't say any names, but this is not just this place. I know that this happens other places too. But they would say, give them these medications, give them these standard things that we usually give people. And then, in the morning, then the doctor will okay medications. And as a nurse, that's going against my license right there. I'm not going to give somebody medicine that the doctor didn't give an order for. And, so that's, all those things. And there's so much more, but that's, part of why I left, and I went to others that, that weren't overnight care and stuff, but, that was just like an outpatient. And so, I mean, I tried a few different ways. And then another one that was so much more of like a psychiatric kind of a hospital, um, that was so much more than substance abuse or addiction. Um, but you'd have people detoxing in there, as well as people maybe with, schizophrenia or other issues.
Mm.
So that was a really scary place. And so yeah, so there was all kinds of discrepancies and things that were kind of corrupt and against, my morals and ethical, medication, the healthcare, ethics and all of that.
Mm. Mm.
yeah, makes sense. I mean, if
Yeah.
if you're
Really
feeling
difficult.
if you're feeling convicted by it, you got to respond accordingly, right? Like, and that's
Yeah,
for their best interest, right? Because you're not obligated to participate, and then
right.
for your own as well, your
Mm.
own integrity, your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
So good on you. So what I want to hear about this book that you wrote.
Ah.
What was what made you want to write a book in the first place?
So, okay, so I had this major breakdown after I left my second husband. And he was an addict. And so I left him. He was abusive. And when I left, it was in the middle of the night after being beat up and that. And um, and I thought, oh, great, everything's wonderful now. I'm on my own. I'm free of him, and everything will be wonderful. But I didn't realize I started I was fearful. I was having night terrors. I was getting very depressed and even suicidal, and just having all the PTSD symptoms. And I kind of had a traumatic childhood as well. And I didn't really tie that together. I didn't really consider that I had any CPTSD symptoms or anything at that time. But I just really crashed. After I left him, I just had this crash, and I ended up coming to California. And there's a great bus ride story that I'll tell you if you want. But so I started writing my whole life story as part of my own healing, to kind of be able to connect the dots and to kind of be able to see where everything fit together in my life. Like, how did this happen? And this lead to this, and this lead to this. And writing it all out was not necessarily to publish it to begin with. It was also partially because I was suicidal. And I thought, if I don't make it out of this place that I was at, I will kind of have a record of it all. I will have a record of it all for my kids or whoever was left that cared or wanted to know what happened. Would have sort of this record of how I was feeling at the time, because I really felt like I was losing my mind. I really felt like I didn't know, I wasn't sure, like, I couldn't really fully take care of myself, and just was in a bad way. So I started writing as therapy, and then I
Hmm.
started reading other memoirs, and I had noticed that some of the things that I could relate with, and how it helped me to see that I wasn't alone, that other people have
Sure.
felt the way that I did and made it out of that. And I thought, this, as I got closer um, to healing and overcoming that, I thought, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to publish this. And then I had to go ahead and
That's
read and edit everything,
that is
clean it
amazing.
up. Yeah.
JR had a similar story. He said it was like his manual for like like he was just trying to write down all these little things that like made sense to him or like had an impact on him, and then
Yeah.
ended up yeah, later
Yeah.
realizing like this could actually help some people. Maybe I should publish.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. And
trip.
I was having, so I was having nightmares. I had been through therapy. I was doing really well, and I was still having nightmares, reliving the night I had left my second husband. And I couldn't fully remember what had happened that night. And um, so I kept reliving it, and I was having like even flashbacks, like during the day, like it would come to me as something it was like like being hit over the head, and it'd be like, oh my gosh, and just you would see something and you knew that it was real, it was what had happened, right? So then one night I had a nightmare again, and I thought, why am I still having these? Why is this? I was so mad because I thought I was completely healed, and I was so mad that I was still having nightmares. And so I got up, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just wrote out everything in the nightmare and then everything that came to mind as I was writing out the nightmare, like 3 pages or something, just, pen on paper. And that, what I wrote that night, is in the book. And that was kind of like one big part of, after that night and after writing it all out, I kind of really figured out what had happened that night. Because up to that point, I wasn't fully sure. I had kind of lost time. And so
It
then
was
when
like
I
a
was,
revelation.
it was, yeah. And so I think that to me, I think that's really huge in the book. I just wrote out word for word what I wrote down on that paper. But also, then when I was in therapy, and my therapist said something about, having been neglected as a kid. And we were really poor, and my mother wasn't around because my father wasn't around. They had divorced, and my father wasn't helping in financially or physically in any way or anything. And so my mother had to work several jobs and wasn't around, and we lived in poverty. And I was alone a lot. I never really considered that I had been, neglected, because you think of that as like a form of abuse, or like, um, like it was like um
Intentional or something.
intentional. That's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Thank you. So when she said that, I was kind of shocked, and then I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then when she said PTSD and CPTSD, I was like, me? No, I don't have that. But then but as I'm writing the book, you can see how this led to this, and this led to this, and this led to this. And yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up in trauma and had to, in my 50s, had to recover from that to be able to live a normal life. But that's the beauty of the book too, is, it's kind of a hard read in the beginning, but near the end you see that it's possible. Like, everything I do, I love so much. I can't even explain. I just wish that I could really like convey to people how much I love my life and everything that I do. And, even 5 years ago, I've far surpassed anything I would have thought that I would have had in my life. And I don't mean
Mm,
had like things, I mean
right.
within myself. I love myself. I love, who I am and what I'm doing. And I'm still growing so much. And I just love it. So, I think that the book will really help people see that it's possible. And,
Yeah.
I'm not somebody that, I didn't have, terrible, horrific things happen to me as a child. And then go on to do amazing things for so many people. I'm more like your every woman. A lot of people will be able to relate to some of the things that I've been through, and then they get stuck there, and
Mm.
even, just to know that they can make it out of that and live their life and love their life. That's what I'm hoping the book does.
Well, and for me, it kind of gives that permission as well. That's one of the things that I always loved about the book, because in the recovery community, we spend a lot of time with big, trauma, a lot of
Yeah.
childhood trauma. And I think that you're right. What your story represents, to me, is how trauma can live in the body and it not be this real big happening. And I think that it gives people permission to address
Yeah.
their own, CTPSD and all those things. It gives them the permission to address their own past, and it gives them the permission to live a life they love. And
Yeah.
that's, really big on my list, and that's what I love, because that's what you do. And that's honestly what's so inspiring to me, just on a daily basis of, you know, communicating with you, or in our communication, and I get to see all of the things that you do, because Pamela she's a masterful hypnotherapist. Like her, that Pamela is within her, part of her soul's purpose when she is in that space with you, and it's very healing. And I think that, to me, I love seeing people in their divine space. And then
Yeah.
she just continues to inspire me on a daily basis, in that she just continues to keep showing up for herself and the next thing, and all the stuff she's doing now to become an even more masterful healer for
Right.
every person. Like, there's no niche of people. Like Pamela has the ability to touch many people from many walks of life and with many different pasts. It's brilliant.
Well,
Well, thank you.
to me, it's like you think about how people that haven't gotten any help for substance use disorder, they have a vision, like an alcoholic is the homeless man
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
with the paper bag around the bottle, and he's sleeping next to a dumpster in the shade or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
or the heroin addict who's is only the person who looks like they haven't showered in 2 weeks, smells like shit, and they're nodding out and they got a needle hanging out of their arm on the bus or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that being said, it's like those are like myths, and it's not what it looks like in most cases. And, like a person who's experienced trauma, their trauma is still trauma,
Right.
and it is still hard to overcome, and it's still very real. So I think that when people put themselves in that box where they're like, well, I didn't go through anything that bad, so like
Yeah.
something, so then they start to feel shame because they think, like, what's different about me? Like something's wrong with me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not coping like with this stuff right,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
And it's and that, so they don't want to go get help because they don't think they need help. They
Yep.
just think there's something fundamentally wrong with them, and
Right.
that it can be fixed, right?
Yeah. Or else they think, well, I'm not screwed up enough, to reach out for help, but yet they're stuck in a life that's not fulfilling, that they
Yeah.
know there's more inside of them that, they just can't seem to access.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I mean, gosh.
So I mean, I love that
Yeah.
aspect of it where it's
Yeah.
like, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way, right? You should
Ding.
you should get help, and you
Yeah,
should.
I kept thinking, what the heck is wrong with me that I can't get past this? Because I
Mm.
really, in the beginning, thought it was just about that last night with my ex-husband. I didn't realize that there was so much more attached to it. And that's
Right.
part of what hypnotherapy can do. And EMDR, can really help show you the whole bigger picture, which I hadn't seen before therapy. I think I was age 50 and I'm 56. I'll be 57 this summer. And so it was not all that long ago, but it's amazing to me to know how much these different things have helped. Um, but yeah, I thought, how come I can't get past this? I didn't think of therapy at first. And another thing I want to mention too is, you know, that there is so many different things. We talk about hypnotherapy can help anybody, for just about anything. It's not a cure all, and it's not actually going to be the best thing for everybody. It might work for some people, but it might be just the add on or just the thing that gets them over the hump when they're doing all these other things too in therapy. I've had people say to me, well, I'm seeing a therapist and I get Reiki treatments and I'm doing this and this. And just so you know, and I'm like, that's awesome because I know that you're serious about your recovery, whatever it's about. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's really a great thing for just an add-on, as well as it can be that thing that gets people to the root of what's really going on that they might not even really know at the time. They just know they don't want to live the way they're living now. So, they can get
Yeah.
to the root of it through hypnotherapy a lot of times. And then that pushes them over that last sort of obstacle that they might be stuck at in their other therapies or their counseling or whatever else they're doing. That might be just the thing that gets them over that hump so that real healing can begin then.
Yeah. So Bridge
Yeah.
had a question there. Did you want
Mm.
to take a crack at answering that question there?
Yeah, so complex trauma and chronic trauma, I think that complex is just, it builds on each other. I I lived in poverty as a small kid. I was left alone a lot. And and I had my sister was killed in a car accident, when I was a young teen. I was a teen mother. I had went through, several date rapes and sexual assaults, and just different things on top of one after the other on top of each other, and having not having a father in the picture. Um, so that's complex. It just keeps adding on. And then chronic is like I live in trauma. Like both of my marriages would have been, chronic, trauma. You're just living in it.
Yeah.
You're not only stepping on eggshells, but you can't talk because of eggshells. Like anything that you do, there's always trauma around you. I think that's that difference where complex is like it adds on
Like
this traumatic
events.
experience, this one,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, because it's more like events. And I look at like
Yes,
the whole active addiction time for me,
Mm.
I look at it as like chronic trauma where you're
absolutely.
just, like living there, over and over. But I believe, in all honesty, and maybe not for everybody, but in my experience, it's almost like complex trauma leads into chronic trauma because you get almost used to living that way. So you get
Yeah.
stuck in that life.
Right.
Yeah, I think you attract that then, those are the kinds of people that you attract to you without even meaning to, or you're like a magnet for them, kind of if it has to do with the people around you. But also, um, a lot of people are, like you said, that's what they're comfortable in. To finally have a time where they don't feel trauma, or a time that they feel like they are, um, a time that they feel like everything's kind of going well, people will cause drama in that,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm.
just to have some chaos around them because that's all they know and that's what feels more like home.
Absolutely. That whole subconscious, life system that we just continuously think that we're somehow the victims of this cycle, but in reality, it's like this subconscious way of living that,
Yeah.
if everything's going good, we will, like you just described, we will
Yeah.
subconsciously start something or get
Yeah.
into a situation just to feed
I
that nervous system.
I remember with my second husband being realizing after so many years, you don't really want just a nice, simple, easygoing life. I see now that this is not something that you're striving for, that you've got to cause some other issue, just to be in your comfort zone, I guess, and it just got
Mm,
worse and worse and worse. Um, but he was he had his own issues from childhood, and not that that's an excuse, but that's, that's where it came from. But he never got to a place of, getting the kind of healing that he needed. And that's part of why, as a nurse, I had went into detox and recovery and that, because I wanted to try to help in a way that I could with the skills that I had.
Mm.
But I like, as it wasn't really it didn't really work out that way. But but uh, but he had went through so many different kinds of treatments, and then he would get all the medications he could, and when he got home, it would start all over again, but much worse. And then he'd go again, and it'd be much worse when he got home. It was just this continuous cycle, but then worse and worse and worse each time.
mm, mm.
Mm.
That's valuable for the families that do not act, that maybe have, active addiction or something in their families, and they don't understand why people can't just go to rehab, come back, and everything be okay, because they are living from that place of where, well, if we take the drugs away or the alcohol away, then everything gets better. And I think that's important when you share your story as well, because it's important to give that familial
Yeah,
aspect, because
yeah,
it helps them kind of understand as well that there's more to it than that. Bridge has a great question. And
Mhm.
so when healed, chronic trauma turns into complex question mark. Chronic is unhealed current complex trauma. This is a debate in my grief and trauma group.
I don't think necessarily, because I think with
Yeah.
complex, it's like piling books on to each other,
Mm-hmm.
but with the chronic, it's like the books are always all over the place. You
Gosh,
know?
ding, that is an amazing way to describe that.
It's like
Ah,
I
they're
like
all
how
over
you
the place.
just I like how you just did your own bell ding.
I know, I know. Ding. I'm gonna
I'm
get my
trying to
own
figure,
bell.
I'm trying to figure out
Hook
how
'em,
to what
hook
to
'em up,
ask.
Brett.
I'm trying to figure out what to ask because I think that some of these terms are being used interchangeably,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not.
Maybe, yeah.
There's acute trauma and chronic trauma, so those are the two differences. And then there's like PTSD, and then there's complex PTSD. So
Right.
PTSD would be because of an acute trauma.
Yes.
Complex would be because of a chronic trauma. So they're not necessarily
It's
always different.
ongoing. It's
Yeah,
ongoing. So if
ongoing.
you've
So
had
if you-
ongoing trauma throughout your life, you know, that's going to be, and this is from my understanding. I know that, you know, Ashley, I know that you are right in the thick of all of this with what you do right now. So this is just, so I may be wrong in what they say right now, but in my understanding, the complex trauma is it has built, the complex is it has built up from one thing after the other after the other. And then the chronic is ongoing. So if you think of somebody with, you know, in the nursing world, somebody with an acute illness is something that came on suddenly. So a chronic illness is something that is always there. You know, somebody always has bronchitis because they're a smoker, or because they always have, you know, breathing issues and chest colds and sore throats and everything. They have sort of chronic bronchitis. But somebody who was just got, you know, just had pneumonia, or just, you know, something, you know, that's an acute thing. They just got sick. They just had this illness. That's an acute thing.
Yeah.
You know,
So
like a broken leg is an acute injury.
so the two diagnoses though are PTSD and then complex PTSD. So chronic events. So if you had, like, say you're in an abusive relationship and it was constant trauma, that would cause complex PTSD. Also, multiple traumas, multiple acute traumas, like say you were in multiple car accidents and then, you know, there was, you know, it caused you to get addicted to pain medicine, and then
Yeah.
eventually you're on the streets, like that can cause CPTSD too, which is complex.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and then PTSD is from an acute, like a one situation.
Yeah.
Let's say you were in a blast, or, you know, or there was a shooting at your job. Like, so I just want to, I don't know. I'm just trying to be clear on what the diagnoses actually
Yeah,
are, so
that's
people
great.
don't get confused.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
keep
thank you.
going. Yeah, keep going.
Hi, Ashley.
Keep going, Ashley. We're waiting on Ashley to show up with the bomb.
Well, I was trying to figure out how to ask the question and not, like, you know, I was trying to follow the, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a complex issue.
It is.
Right. Bridge actually asked if she can call in the comments.
There's a caller, finally a caller.
Yeah, I don't know if
And if she's gonna, and she has a grief and trauma group, so there's actually a new diagnosis in the DSM-5 TR that's prolonged grief. That's actually in the DSM for the first time as grief.
Well, it's about time.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's about time, because
Yeah.
wow, that we're noticing that as that, because, you know, for the longest time it was just PTSD, and everybody had just associated that with people that went to war. And so for the longest time, people didn't really think that they could have that, or they could, you know, be
Right.
going along with that. And I'm grateful to hear that, you know, with the grief, because gosh, you know, I've watched.
Absolutely.
Your body doesn't know the difference between
Amen.
war and
doesn't.
any other trauma, so it's how your body
Amen.
perceives it. So that's another thing that in recent years they've really changed, is people didn't think certain situations were considered trauma, like divorce. Their parents
Right.
divorced, that's a trauma, but it's not war, so people didn't think it
Right.
was the same thing.
And it's a grief too, because it is a loss. It's a loss of the hopes and dreams. It's a loss of a life that, you know, regardless of where you are after that, regardless of if it gets better for you, regardless if you're the one who wanted the divorce, it's still there's still a grieving process, because it's a total death of one life onto another life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I need divorce. Yeah.
I've got this phone line set up if we want to let Bridge call in.
Also, I'd like to say, if anybody wants to send me a message after the show, you know, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or, you know, or whatever, I'm happy to, you know, continue any conversation or answer anything from my own perspective.
And also remember, now that we Recovery Soul Food is on Recovery Revolution Live, Pamela also
Boom.
gives the amazing gift of,
Yeah.
a free hypnotherapy session. So, I always urge people, because you don't
Yeah.
know, I just have to repeat Jason and what Jason and Charlie always say with run the experiment. You don't really
Yeah.
know if it's going to help if you never try. And,
Can you help people quit smoking?
Yeah. I have helped people quit smoking. Yeah, but it depends. I mean, there's been a couple people who their partner wants them to quit and they've agreed to it, but they're
Mm.
not really necessarily on board. So I have stopped helping people or trying to help people that don't want it for themselves.
Right.
So I've had several times that a partner or a family member or something would say, my whatever, my husband, my whatever, somebody that I know agreed to try it.
Mhm.
And I used to set up an appointment and then they wouldn't be there, or you could tell that they weren't really trying, they weren't into it.
Yeah. They weren't open-minded or even
Right.
trying.
And so now I started saying, if somebody comes to me like that, have them contact me,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also to explain that it's not really a one and done. Like some of the things that we
Right.
hear advertised, 30 minutes can change your life forever. You never smoke
Right.
again.
Dude,
That was, yeah.
that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. This last time I tried, I did really good. I was about 6 months smoke free,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I got a phone call that day at work
Yeah.
that said that they didn't think my mom was going to live through the weekend, and I had a complete freaking breakdown. Actually, I'm on one of the episodes of this show for a couple minutes, breaking down, because I felt like I was supposed to be on the show that night, and I felt like I needed to like let these guys know like that I couldn't, but why? And then I just like lost my shit and
Yeah.
completely crumbled for a minute, and then I smoked a cigarette right after that, and yeah, I haven't turned back, and I just full-fledged smoke-a-thon again. So
Yeah, and you have to be careful with the wording too in hypnotherapy, because there are people, now I know most of the people, I know there's a debate and everything about cannabis use and that, but there's a lot of people that will smoke marijuana and they don't want to quit that, but they want to quit smoking cigarettes. So you have to be real careful with your wording, and it's legal here. So, I don't judge or try to tell them what they want, so you have to be real careful, and you don't want to say, anything about being smoke free or anything, or not smoking, when they don't want to completely give up smoking. They just want to stop tobacco, stop cigarette use, or even with a vape or something. If somebody doesn't want to stop that, but they want to quit having the cigarettes on top of that or in between that. So you have to be really precise with something like that. Now, a lot of times with hypnotherapy, you don't have to be as precise, because it's almost like, I use the analogy of taking an aspirin because I have a headache and I'm used to living with this knee ache, but now my knee, feels better too, and I wasn't even trying to take the aspirin for my knee. So it's kind of like that too. So if you're more general, you're going to kind of go in and clean things up, or kind of ask the subconscious to balance and for overall wellness and stuff. And then you'll see yourself within you, what comes up or what starts to resolve for you. But when it comes to something specific like smoking, then you need to be a little more precise with your wording.
gotcha.
We have Bridge on the line.
Hi.
What's up?
You still there, Bridge?
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
It's so awesome that you're on. And I got to get your book. And I loved what you said. Now I'm going to back it up because I need clarification. But I love what you said. Was it that the chronic is like the books are all over the place, and complex trauma is like it's a stack of books?
I always work in an analogy, so I always try to come up with a good analogy.
Love analogies.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So my question would be, I'm still confused because is it the chronic that's more ongoing? Because here's the thing. I would technically say I have complex trauma in the sense of I definitely had a whole lot of PTSD,
Yeah.
abusive childhood, SUD, unhealthy marriage, divorce, all those things, right? But because of DBT and therapy and getting treatment and finding recovery, I find that I'm a totally different person. So I would put myself in that category of complex. However, with your point of maybe saying, and I'm not picking on you, like we're still, every Tuesday we're debating this, but the chronic is like ongoing. Well, I still, once in a while, will notice I get triggered, like if there's confrontations or
Absolutely.
even just, anxiety. So like, is it possible to have a dual diagnosis of chronic and complex? Like, I just want to put myself in a box sometimes when it comes to the, diagnosis.
I think that Ashley might actually be able to answer that better, but I don't think it's considered a dual diagnosis with chronic, and because I think any, across the board, there's several types of schizophrenia. So if people have, are considered having a few of those, it's not a dual diagnosis, it's schizophrenia, but they've got this type and this type and this type. So I think it's the same kind of thing, and I may be wrong. If you have, I think anybody that has been through recovery, anybody who has been addicted and substance abuse and been through recovery probably has, CPTSD, because just going through that process is very traumatic. So that's what I would say, and that's not, I don't know that that's in any book or anything. That's just my opinion. But I think that having chronic, I don't know that. So complex PTSD and chronic PTSD, I don't know. I don't think that they're like two separate things, but one sort of lends its hand to the other. Does that make sense?
Would you say, yes? So this, I think I'm going to put myself in the complex, but I would say chronic, before I found recovery,
Yeah.
I would say I was chronic because I wasn't making a point to fully try to heal and process through that stuff. Where I'd put myself in complex because, some of that stuff will still crop up. But for the most part, again, I feel like I've completely changed my whole outlook on life, and I'm able to, not stick. I feel like, I like what you said. Like, I think chronic is more, the books are still all over the place and you're trying to figure it out. Mine are at least on the shelf. They might not be in a good all the right categories are color coded.
Right.
They're all in the right shelf. Okay.
All
I
right.
don't know. I think
Thank you.
Let's back this.
I feel like with the, like once you've been doing and digging in and doing all this work, and you start to make some adjustments in your life when you're healing and doing that, right? Like you're not participating in toxic relationships anymore. You're not with a guy that beats you up. You're not using. You're not broke anymore and stressed out all the time because you think you're going to lose your place, whatever. So I think that healing eventually would result in maybe the chronic aspect of it to go away because your life is much simpler and you're not constantly going through traumatic things all the time anymore.
Yeah. Even if you're having triggers. Yeah.
So then you would be complex. You still have the trauma. You still,
You've had those experiences.
Yeah, those experiences are still there, and you still have thought processes.
I'll just say one more thing.
Go ahead.
That's a really great point, Jason. So how I can tell things are different is before, especially in relationships, now my roommate, I'm always saying, oh, I'm too picky. And she goes, no, Bridge, now you actually have standards.
That's again. Ding.
Absolutely.
Yourself, So yeah,
dude,
yes. That's how I would. Yeah.
All right.
No, it's good.
Let's quit. we need to take a step back because we're self-diagnosing things that we're not doctors. So let's be clear about what
Right.
diagnoses there are. All right, so in the DSM-5 TR, which is the newest edition, complex PTSD is not a separate classification from PTSD. There's acute stress disorder, which is, and then there is also, so there's reactive attachment disorder, there's PTSD, and there's acute. So that's what's in the DSM-5 TR. Now there's complex trauma as a diagnosis, and the other one, what's it called? The disease one that what is it called? The ICD, the International Classification of Diseases. Complex trauma is in the 11th edition of that as a diagnosis, but so if you look at the DSM-5 TR, like this is the DES reference. So the symptoms are pervasive stuff that lasts over 12 months. And if it's less than a month, then it's an acute stress disorder. So you have to there's all these symptoms and you have to have a certain amount of them. And nobody should diagnose themselves with any condition, nor should you tell others what conditions are out there So I'm just telling you, because I'm reading from the book, that we just need to be sure we're careful about diagnoses and what we say are what.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm diagnosed with complex PTSD, but this new term of chronic, trauma came out after my diagnosis. So that's what I was trying to decipher. But I would
it's not a real
diagnosis. Pam. Yeah, like Pam, thank you. Now I get it. Like, no, because I'm not living it. I'm not making those same patterns and cycles. Like I've grown, I've healed away, and from those negative, how I would process triggers and stuff like that before. So yeah.
And your triggers, you need to know that your triggers are actually your friend, because that's where I still need some healing around this issue. And then you can take a step back from that trigger and think, what do I need to do to get past this? So next time something like this comes up, I'm not triggered. I don't have that immediate response, that trigger. So that's totally your friend. That's totally your teacher, is your trigger. So whatever triggers you, that's a chance to, know where you need healing around.
And develop another coping skill.
Yes.
So if you see yourself, you might not be able to change it in that moment, but the first step is recognizing that it's a trigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bing.
Well, and
Absolutely.
That being said, I mean, this is an ongoing process as well. So we're always going to have things illuminate those things for us as we move forward and have more to work on. And we're going to need to develop more coping mechanisms and stuff. But I think it's funny because all Bridge wanted was to put herself in a box. And you're like, no, we cannot put you in a self-diagnosed box.
Well, no matter what it is, nobody should be self-diagnosing anything anyway.
Right.
No matter, even if it's cold and flu, don't self-diagnose yourself.
I just found it comical.
Yeah.
Well, you can use the DSM-5 and the other one to say that chronic PTSD is not identified as a disorder, so there should be no debate on the difference.
Yeah, buy that desk reference and squash your debate, Bridge.
Or just look online. You can find it online. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that information is online.
Still, you look cooler with the book in your hand. Like,
I know, right? I was just gonna say, and you look awfully smart doing it.
Yeah, Ashley.
Ashley's the smart one here.
We're not worthy.
I know.
No, I love you, Ashley. I thought you were gonna wear your shirt tonight, Ash. I wore mine so we could be twinning.
I went to meeting after meeting today, and I didn't even think about it. I wore it to bed the other night. It's comfortable.
Yeah, dude.
Nice.
I mean, they were spendy, but that was because I picked because I hate wearing shirts if they're not comfortable, and if they're comfortable, I'll wear the shit out of that shirt. You know what I mean?
And I don't like to do cheap feeling like shirts on stuff. Like when we make merch, I hate cheap feeling merchandise.
Yeah.
Just won't do it.
Yep.
Just won't do it.
Indeed, Lisa. Indeed.
Outstanding. Well, what are you doing now, Pam? Because you're not only just doing hypnotherapy at this point, like your world's opening up on a grand scale. So what's
Well,
happening with you now?
I am taking classes for a diploma in the in a integrative healing arts practitioner diploma program, but I'm also working on 2 more books. And yeah, I have t-shirts now. Speaking of merch, but it's not really merch, it's more of like self-care. They're called me time tees on Etsy. Just, you know, kind of advocating for your own self-care, for your own me time. So what else? So yeah, so I think that's all I got going on.
What is that healing, that whole, integrative healing, what does all of that contain? Like
Oh my gosh, there's so many classes. So I don't have it in front of me, and sometimes when I do different podcasts and that, I have it in front of me in case people ask. But but right now I'm working on death and dying and hospice care, and there's also ceremonies and rituals, and so it runs the gamut from things like aromatherapy and then transpersonal psychology and different things in between. So there's spiritual coaching, there's life coaching, there's mindful meditation. So it's just it's a year and a half. So I keep looking over here because I've got some of my books over here. So there's
I love that you're
aromatherapy
doing,
for the soul, and
I love that you're doing holistic and that you're learning that and that you're talking about it on the podcast, because I think that's everything is so medical. A lot of times people trust. There's a lot of data that supports holistic healing. And
dude, seriously, I would almost venture to say 9 times out of 10, there's a holistic way that will take care of the problem. Like, I think that medicine, is like a last resort, like surgery.
It's a first resort in our country. It's
I know.
We'll give you a pill and we'll fix your problem.
Right. Surgery, pills, any of that kind of stuff should be a last resort. Like,
that's how I ended up getting into hypnotherapy, because I was a nurse for 14 years and it was really seriously a soul-sucking career. It was just really terrible for me. And I was looking for something more holistic to help people in their, within their healing journey and in a different way than nursing. So I took some classes that kind of like a program what I'm doing now, but not as extensive, to sort of an intro of a bunch of different holistic modalities. And that's where I found hypnotherapy. And I just loved that so much. And I was good at it from the beginning. So it just really, then I got more education in that. And I was in nursing for 10 more years. And then, I took more education. So I got all those up there. So I took more education, finally got certified. And now I've been able to have my own business doing that. And then while I'm doing hypnotherapy with people, I'm feeling like I would like to do more and get deeper and help them in whatever way is going to help for them, other than like, here's your session. Okay, bye. There's so much more that we could do for those who need it, besides just more sessions. So now that's why I'm back in school.
Awesome.
I love that you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
I respect, I'm not very calm, but I should be calmer with some of this like holistic stuff. But even so anxiety is one of the common ones. Like 30 days of mindfulness meditation has equal results, if not better, than anxiety medicine, right?
It's amazing. It's amazing. There's no side effects. There's like zero side effects. And you actually find yourself, if you're able to get yourself to a regular meditation practice, then you'll find yourself not needing coffee, not needing extra sleep, because it really brings you down to that state of full relaxation without sleeping. So you're just on that edge. And that's how it feels with hypnotherapy too. Is like you're just right in that middle area. It's like almost like a dream state, or just before dreaming, or just coming out of a dream.
It's that sweet spot.
It's the nod. It's like that nod area, you know, and I think that a lot of times that for me was what I was chasing, was that almost there. And that's a dangerous chase right there, you know. And I think, you know,
fine line, brother.
Very, very, very.
Well, and think about too, it's something you can control yourself. So like, we'll use anxiety again as another example. Like you stress about things, and because the control, like you want to control the things that you can control, so that the things that you're afraid of or you can't control, you feel like you can manage it more if you can control everything else. Well, so then if you have to take a pill to address it, can you take that at all times? Sometimes you can't drive with it. Like, you know, you go to certain places, you're in the workplace, but you can always have mindfulness and meditation. You can, if you teach yourself to do that, you can control when you're able to address your anxiety. So it's like,
and that's the thing I tell people in the hypnotherapy sessions. If you got anything, even from the first session, if you got anything from that, you have it within you to do it without me. I'm just the facilitator. I'm just the guide. And if you got something from that, you can do that on your own. So, you know, that helps people to feel like they have control over it. They don't have to, you know, oh, I need to call my hypnotherapist. I need a session. And, you know, I'm not trying to say that they don't need a session or that it wouldn't be helpful, but they can get themselves to that place as well.
Right. Well, I can attest to that. When I was in therapy, my therapist taught me a couple of guided meditations, you know, visualization exercises to help me release some trauma that, you know, or learn to sit with it, actually was the goal. Learn to be present in it and okay with that. And it was super useful, and I used it like we only did it together one time. I could sit down and like guide you through it right now. I remember it word for word and bit by bit, because it was like a very powerful moment for me. And so I could totally attest to that. It's like if it does something for you, you're gonna remember it so good too, because you know, it's like it was a moment.
I have people tell me even after, because in my consultation I have a sample session if they'd like, and I have people sometimes tell me even after that sample session, I have never felt so calm in my life, and that's just from, you know, and talking about anxiety. These are people that would be high anxiety and having trouble sleeping, and you know, so they're always anxious, and just having that, you know, 10 minutes of a sample relaxation session, you know, more like a guided meditation than hypnotherapy really. They can just really feel, if they allow themselves to let go and feel it, you know, they can really gain a lot from just that.
Yeah, and I like what Rupert Spira says about addiction, how addiction, and this was true for myself, so I can't speak for anybody else, but how addiction is actually about a busy mind, that it's one of those things where your mind just doesn't shut off, and that a lot of times, you know, that's what people are looking for. And I know for myself, when that was one of the things, the only way to get my mind to shut down and shut off was to actually use. So the one thing that I was afraid of, well, the difference for me between sobriety and recovery was that recovery through, you know, many different healing modalities, and one of them, as you know, being hypnotherapy and meditation and those things, I was able to get to a place where I could calm my mind, and it made the struggle, you know, the fight easier, you know, easier than that. Yeah. Outstanding. So what is so when do you finish this course, and when will the full availability of Pamela the Healer be ready?
That's
The
well,
Pamela 2.0.
That's right.
in January next year is my
Oh,
last
wow.
class. Yeah. So I
Wow.
started it in April of
Wow.
2020, and it's the last class
Holy shit.
is January of 24.
That's a long class.
Yeah, that's why it's a course, and that's why when he said what's involved, I'm like, oh, I don't have the paper in front of
lot.
me. Yeah, a lot.
But here's what I love
Um,
about Pamela, because Pamela can go through this, and it's not like quick, and but I don't see Pamela get frustrated and be trying to rush it. Like
Yeah.
she often sends me the stuff that she's working on, because it's really cool, y'all. Like extremely cool. Like she did an automatic writing, and we got to be her test, her test guineas, me and my wife. And man, I mean, mine was amazing, but when my wife's was like, holy shit, like I couldn't even believe it. But
that was
so
an intuitive guidance class within the course. Yeah.
I love it. And you never hear Pamela's never in like a rush. Like I'd be in a rush. Like, are we done yet? Are we done? Are we done? Are we done? Pamela's never in a rush. She's just moving through life.
She's like, settle in.
She is. She's like
Calming.
water.
A
Just
calming presence like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See why
And
I need a friend like Pamela.
Cool your jets, bud. Cool your
Me too.
And I do pet sitting too. I forget to mention this, but I do pet sitting on the side, and a lot of people will say, that even their pets, like they've never seen their pets so calm.
Oh gosh,
So
Pamela, please come to my house then.
That's
Please.
awesome.
But
Please come
I
to my
love it
house.
so much. So that's what I mean. Everything I do, I just love it so much,
Yeah.
Isn't that our goal in life, man? Like
Yeah.
that's gotta be our true goal, is to get to a place in life where we just love everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Think about, you said that when you were a nurse, it was soul sucking and draining. So now you're talking about loving it and being filled up, and
Yeah.
that's the dream, right?
Amen.
Yeah, and that's part of why I left, because I knew I couldn't continue to do that. It was not good for my soul. And so that's another of the books I'm working on, is my 14-year nurse career, and just all about that, and how the things I went through and different stories in nursing and the truth of nursing, and then how and why I got out of it. So that's that's one of the other books I'm working on.
Amazing. Gosh,
Yeah,
I just
for
had
sure.
something I wanted to ask you, and it just left my mind completely. Dang.
So
Dang
that's
it.
an industry where there's a lot of misuse of substances, and they can't seek treatment because they have to worry about their licenses. And a lot
Yeah, and I just got finished, in that book, the first investigation, because I saw it in a lot of different places. And then you end up having, an investigation happen within the facility. And actually, there's been some nurses that are able to continue working in their nursing, but they have a limited license. So if they've ever been, and I don't know exactly the laws, and I'm sure it's different in different states, but they would be able to do like desk work and stuff like that and not have any access to the med carts. So it's like a limited license, kind of.
Right.
This is what I wanted to ask. So, I know that there's probably a lot of people. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I bet there's a lot of people that kind of feel stuck in either a career or maybe in a place that they have something else they want to do. Can you tell a little bit about how that story came about? To just because it always gave me hope, how things showed up for you that were kind of guidance and things. So like how you went from nursing to hypnotherapy, just some of the details.
So I think what you're talking about is So it just kept getting worse and worse and worse as far as, I tried several different jobs and it kept getting worse and worse. And I was just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so this was 10 years earlier. I had went through the first hypnotherapy course, was not able to switch off of nursing onto that because of my alcoholic husband. You need some, I needed to work full time in nursing, which was, of course, paying the bills. Um, so then fast forward to 2020, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse, and it was bringing me way down again. And I did a guided meditation for, kind of what your purpose is, because I was feeling myself like I had already kind of been through this healing process, and I was kind of like, I can't live like this, and just like the title of my book, I didn't come this far to only come this far. I wanted to really live my life and not be sucked back down into some feeling terrible. And so in that guided meditation, I saw myself doing hypnotherapy, and I was like, oh yeah. And I was so excited that dream was in there somewhere still. And so then things kept happening that kind of showed me, that that's the direction I was supposed to go. Even to the point of, a few different nursing jobs that I had taken didn't really work out for one reason or another. And it was like the universe was like pushing me out of it, and so I have this lotus tattoo on my chest. And when in that dream that I saw myself doing hypnotherapy, I had a lotus tattoo on my chest. I was like, I made note of it, but I had no plan to get another tattoo or anything. And so then not too long after that, I had put an item up for sale, and it was for sale or trade group or something. So I said for sale or trade, and I had a tattoo artist that said, would you take a tattoo for this item? And I thought, well, there's my lotus. So just all these signs, and then I had a deja vu experience when I went to the school for hypnotherapy just to get some information. I had this big deja vu experience through that. So it was just amazing. I don't know if that's what you're
That's
talking about,
exactly
Luna,
what
or
I
not.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
I feel like stuff like that is like it's just affirming the path,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like for me, I always say, like, when I can tell that what I'm doing is like anointed by God, like it's like I didn't ask to do the things that I do. I get asked to
Right.
do them.
You're pushed that way. Yeah.
And even it, like in the beginning, every fiber of my being said, you are not qualified for that. Like nobody wants to hear anything you have to say, but
Yeah.
and as time went on, I kept remembering that if it could possibly help you and somebody else, then you have to say yes. Like my sponsor drilled that in my head early on, like you are responsible to give back and not steal from, the recovery community. So I'm like, okay. So I just learned to say yes to stuff, like show up. Never know.
Yeah, if it's coming to you in whatever way it's coming to you, there's a reason for that. Even if it's just to contemplate, that brings you somewhere else. But there's a reason that it has come to you, whether it's been an idea or an opportunity or something you read or see somewhere. If it's in front of you, there's a reason for that.
Right. And then all the crazy things like that, weird coincidences, like signs, if you will.
Yeah.
Just like, man, whenever that stuff happens, I'm like, I just look up and I'm like, I'm listening, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
like I'm really grateful that to be living, a life where it's like that, where
Yeah.
I can have those affirming moments and those signs and those, revelations where I'm just like,
just amazing.
Yeah. And you think back, right? And you're just like, how did I get so blessed, man?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't deserve it.
Yes. Yes, and yes. It's pretty amazing to look over your life and to be able to know where we've come from and where we are, and I love the title of the book. You know, you can say this almost to yourself almost every day, you know, as I didn't come this far to only come this far, you know, so what's next? I'm open to guidance, you know, even if you don't have to, you know, if you don't see it or you have an idea. And I don't know who ever, you know, which person ever brought this up, but I've heard it so many times, especially in the spiritual community, that if there's something that you want, you know, it's already within you to have. If you want it,
Right.
it's possible, you know. There's
Right.
like that whole example of, I see people diving off cliffs and there's nothing in me that wants to dive off a cliff, and yet, you know, to stand in front of somebody and talk about recovery journey or healing, I'm all in for that. So it's like, whatever that is in your soul, in your heart, that you know deep in that you want to do, like, it's for you and it's possible, because
Yeah.
it's not, it wouldn't be given to you if not.
Right.
Well, it makes me think of the saying, everything you want is just on the other side of fear.
Yep.
True. Yep.
Ding. There's been some good dings here tonight.
Dude, I got a lot of those one-liners, man. I just
I know.
veritable treasure trove of
Yeah,
like,
put 'em in a book.
Yeah, we could write a whole book on the one.
They're not mine though. I'm just regurgitating stuff,
though.
you know, to the best of my ability. Yeah.
Little old me. You're awesome, Jason. I love you,
Thanks, man.
man.
Pamela, you're awesome.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing a bit of your story and your experience with us. I love that we were able to you know, hear about all this great work you do, because it sounds very appealing. I think I might be visiting your website soon.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's a lot on the website, because I do kind of have a niche of like middle-aged women. So don't let that fool you.
Oh,
Don't let that scare you.
maybe I am a like
I
middle-aged
love
woman.
you, Jason.
I had
I love
somebody
you.
the other day that contacted me through phone, and they didn't have the website link, and I said, you know, and it was a younger person. I said, don't let the middle-aged woman writing scare you. but there is a lot on there that shows what, if you read the whole first page, then you'll see it's not just that. But yeah.
I wanted to say I love it when someone that's been through stuff that could have destroyed them turns it and uses it towards like beauty and to make a difference. And I think that that's really a beautiful thing, that, you know, instead of letting the world beat you down, you decided you wanted to help and change it. That's amazing.
It's so hard to, when you're on that edge, you know, and I know all of you guys know that edge. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to either step off this way, or you have to figure out how to take a step back. And that's what it's all about. Again, another analogy, but
Hell yeah.
And of course, in steps Ashley with that beautifulness that's comes right out, because that is so inspiring. That's what's inspiring about this whole life, you know, is being able to sit in the presence of people that have, you know, that have just transmuted pain into purpose and passion, and I just think it inspires me every single day, you know. Like, every person in this whole feed right now inspires me probably more than most of you know that you do, because I'm also always looking for inspiration in my day. And so, you know, all of you inspire me, all of you.
and all of you inspire me as well, for sure. So yeah, I'm really honored to be.
Go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was saying the foundation for recovery is hope.
Amen.
So you're giving people hope, you know, that they can recover from anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be necessarily substance use disorder or whatever. And, you know, when the dimensions, community, purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Home. What's the fourth one?
What?
We got another question from Bridge.
Uh-oh.
What are your thoughts on treating PTSD with psychedelics in PR?
Is she asking me?
I guess.
Probably everybody, I suppose.
Or Ashley.
She wants consensus.
I think that it's every different treatment, every different type of treatment is going to be individual. There's no good or bad, right or wrong. It's up to the individual and their healthcare providers and or their mental health care providers. It takes it's not just your own. You're not the only one. That if you want to try something, it's good to talk to others, but know that just because something worked for your friend or something worked for a bunch of people in a group doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Or if something doesn't work for them, doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. And this says, I'm talking about everything, EMDR, hypnotherapy, Reiki, coaching, any kind of treatment at all, or any even medications. There's no right or wrong or something that's going to be right for everybody. It's really individual.
I just echo that. Yeah, I think that it is individualistic. Some people don't respond well to psychedelics. Some people have bad trips right away. They just can't. They're not mentally equipped, or for whatever reason, it just doesn't respond well with them.
Yeah.
Other people have a much better experience with it, and I think obviously in that type of treatment, way like that would be done with somebody who's licensed to guide you through that experience,
exactly,
to try to achieve a certain outcome. And I've heard of stories of that working, with like ibogaine and microdosing and things like that.
Right.
So I think, if it's something that somebody wants to try, more power to you, man. I'm all for. I'm a big proponent for, like, if you're trying to get better, like, go ahead and do that. Seek it, and what's the worst that can happen? You have a fucked up trip, and then you move on to the next idea or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe it works.
I have a question. What does she mean when she says NPR?
Yeah, I'm with you on the NPR.
Yeah, I mean, NPR.org is a lot of information about using psychedelics for different things, but I don't. What's the abbreviation of NPR? Bridge?
National Public Radio.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
I'm not even able to answer the question until I want to make sure I understand what the question is, because that's just an acronym I'm not sure about. So
I just think what Jason was saying was really important, that there are people that are licensed for different kinds of treatments, and it's really important that you do it in that way instead of obtaining things on your own and deciding to try it.
Yeah, like, just because you read about it in a magazine doesn't mean that you need to go get a bag of shrooms and eat the mushrooms and sit there.
Right. That's why I was like, NPR, is that like on your own? Is that some like acronym I didn't know? Like, or if you were asking a doctor?
I don't know that. I don't know it either. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was saying, I completely agree with Jason as far as doctors' offices and doctors giving it if that's what they feel you need, or looking into it. So I completely agree. I mean, the studies have shown great results in people but they've tried everything else before they try that. It's not the first thing that's tried as well. So another thing. But I agree with you, Jason, but I don't think people should be doing it at home.
No, my head immediately went to like a clinical setting.
Yeah.
Because she said treating PTSD with psychedelics. So I also thought, what's the NPR? But I was like, whatever. I just figured through the context of the sentence, like where my head went was like to a clinical setting. So that was where I was thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know
It'd be
what it is
wonderful
either.
if she would tell us what the heck.
Yeah,
it
tell
means.
us, Bridge, because
I'm
Google
one of
says
those that I
it's
like
public
to know
radio.
the question so I can, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I don't want to say yes, I support it if it works for somebody, and then I was talking about, you know, tipping cows over.
Well, that's why I was saying too that, you know, any kind of treatment, you know, is not going to be right or wrong. It's definitely individual. Whatever NPR stands for, it's still going to be, you know, an individual thing, you know, but if she's talking about on their own, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, then I don't support that.
And like not practicing, right? Like I was trying to think of like the different
Right.
Not-
letters stood for.
Yeah.
Damn it, Bridge.
But I mean, everything
Oh,
you're saying,
Bridge.
Pam, was correct. So I guess it doesn't matter what it means.
Right on. Yeah, because we kind of covered every base at this point. Oh.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. Maybe don't take the, you know, the cheapest guide out there or the cheapest place to go, because I don't think everybody's out there with the same, you know, like integrity when it comes to healing on any level. On
But
any
I got a
level.
Groupon.
Yeah.
I know. I was just going to say, don't go to
Right.
Groupon, but I didn't want to say it.
Right.
Bro, back in the day when I sold acid, I was a self-renowned guide. I could like save people from a bad trip, or I could take people who had never had a, you know, good trip, and I could guide them through like an amazing experience.
I used to think that
I
was
was
a legit
super good
talent.
at it.
I used to think that was a legit talent I had. Like the only one I could find
Yeah.
was I could talk myself out of a bad trip.
Right. Same here, but then I've had a few bad ones though down towards the end of that road with the psychedelics. But that's neither here nor there.
I never did psychedelics. I can't even give an opinion.
Right on.
So
Well,
I have to.
maybe you could go get your PTSD treated in a clinical
Right.
setting. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I see.
Probably.
I got a friend who quit heroin with ibogaine, and she's got a pretty crazy story. Yeah, she had to go down to like Mexico or something to do it.
They've used psychedelics since back in the day. That's AA. Like they don't talk about that, but
Right,
psychedelics were being used at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how he wrote the steps, the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was only when it got out into the street use that it became illegal.
Well, and that's
It was
kind
illegal
of
in the beginning. Yeah.
the other thing is too is everything's tainted nowadays. There's a poison
Right,
in
you-
fish supply, so it's like
Amen.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with like even MAT. There's such a huge debate about that, but I think that, you know, even if you think you're trading one addiction for the other, at least you know where it's coming from, and you don't have to associate with people on the street, or you know, or people who doesn't know what's really in what they're giving you.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
at least
I
at the
think that's a
very
great point.
least, there's that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. That's what I've always said, you know, if someone's going to go into recovery, whichever way they're going, they got to be alive to get there, you know? And so wherever you are in that journey, okay, but you got to be alive to get there. That's a great
and I
point.
think there's so much pressure like that you're trading one for another. And it's like when even if you say you're in a 12-step program, your life has become unmanageable, right? So if you're taking Matt and you're a productive citizen and your life is not unmanageable, then then you don't have to go through the next step because you don't, you know.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely, Ashley. I love you. We're gonna do a Matt series together. I'm telling you. It's coming. It's coming. Ashley holds the good info. The good info. Love it.
Yeah.
Now we need to do a study that's longer than like 2 to 5 years.
Come on, Ashley. Right.
Well, and I think like, so the study for like 2 years, it's like got great results. I mean, Matt has the highest adherence rate of any of the programs for 2 years, and then at 2 years it drops off and it's about even with AA, like about like 38%. But if you think about it, you put MAT so that people can be stabilized so that they can learn those coping skills. But if we don't ever go to that next step when they're stabilized and teach them coping skills, then at 2 years they're right back. Like,
Absolutely.
so they
It becomes
stagnant. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes that dependence on the program. I went through that for many years. My life my life was manageable, but it still was dependent on the program. The difference in what happened when I stepped into recovery, almost 10 years ago, it was that I knew that I needed the mat to stabilize my body, but I knew I had to do something different here and here.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the difference. And then that the relationship with the medication and the setting had to change, because it's unfortunate that the setting comes along with very minimal requirements for for the facilities to be able to get their license to be able to give this. And so a lot of the counseling in sessions in there are kind of done just for a adherence to the program rules situation. But what I'm starting to find, the more I'm involved in that area, is that we're getting a new set of counselors and physician's assistants that are less about the business and more about that whole healing. And they're embedding themselves in these programs that, that has a potential to really help people. And I think if we continue to speak out and the recovery community stops the shaming bullshit, which is our biggest problem, in all of our lives, is shame. So we got to get ourselves and stop from shaming other people because it's not our way, then we can learn more about this and we can actually save more lives and people can feel whole and healthy,
Well,
and
that's the goal, right?
I honestly think that if we did a long-term study with Matt and then utilized coping skills and finding your people and finding your pathway or whatever, I think we would see tremendous positive results that would shock people, because you get them to that 2 years, and it doesn't matter if they stay on not the rest of their life, if they're coping and doing things and finding their people. That's why AA is the one that shows the best results at like the 10 and 20 year mark, because if you make it in AA and you're still going 10 years later, you found your people. Those are the people that you belong with and that you feel like you fit in, because you wouldn't be still going 10 years down the road if you didn't like them. So they found their people. So it's we're not letting people that recover differently find their people, and we really need to do that.
Well, this just raises up that whole continuum of care, debate, where it's like, you got these places, you go, you get the 30-day spin dry, maybe you do a little bit outpatient or some aftercare, and then you're on your own. Whereas, like, we should treat addiction the same way you treat cancer. You have to continue to come back and continue to get checked up, and you have to continue all these different things. And then there's support groups and events and community activities and fundraising and all these different things that are going on, and like people stay connected to that community for years after even if they beat the cancer, typically, because they need to keep making sure that it didn't resurface. And this is the way that addiction should be treated as well, where it's that long term, and it's not just, okay, great, you're not having cravings anymore. It's, teaching you life skills and how to become a productive member of society and how to be a responsible adult. What's that? That's weird. Just all that kind of shit. It needs to be part of it, because there's so much more than just
think about this. Like, visualize what I'm about to say. Somebody who's beat breast cancer, they run a 5K or they do a half marathon, and after they run across the mile, they're cheering, I made it through. I recovered, I survived from breast cancer, and they're proud to run this thing and cross the line because they made it. When's the last time you ever saw somebody in recovery running something and being proud? I'm in recovery. I was able to do this. Like,
Yeah.
we're not celebrating
I don't
in the
know.
way that we
Right.
celebrate recovering from other diseases. So that how
Maybe,
can we expect
maybe we have different
people to?
communities because I feel like I see that a lot, but that's where I'm from.
It's awesome that you get to see that a lot, because I don't really see it much where we are. I've been begging. We at one time, Wilmington, North Carolina was given the number one place for opiate and heroin addiction. I think this was back in 2017, and still I can't get a recovery center here. I've got them in Raleigh and Charlotte, and I can't get it here. And
I
what
see
part of the?
events.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna
No,
say I
you
see
go.
events for people that have passed away and
Right,
raise
right,
money, but I
right,
don't see anything celebrating
right,
recovery at
right,
like that level where there's
right,
pictures in the newspaper of them going through the line. And I mean,
right.
maybe it happens there,
Yeah,
but
it does. It happens, I guess, in only select spots in the country, but it's not. I don't know. I think it just depends on like how many recovery community organizations are in a particular state, and like those things usually typically will band together, or how many treatment centers are in a state. Because like this is Minnesota, it's a land of 10,000 treatment centers, and we have when I started my recovery, I think there was 3 recovery community organizations in the state, and I think currently we have 17. I think so.
That's
They're
amazing.
popping up all over the place, and everybody's. I mean, I would like to say everybody's working together and supporting each other, and I think for the most part that's true. But then when you're talking about getting grants and funding, and I think too, from what I've heard, there's a lot of like kind of people are competing for this funding, which
Yes.
there should be more than enough for everyone, in my opinion. But
Right.
I mean, it's still, there's tons of stuff like that here,
Yeah.
but that's just
That's
here,
really
I guess.
awesome.
Yeah, I wish you guys had that too.
Well, we're still in the South, and it's unfortunate that, that makes a difference, but it is. We're still in the land of keep your secret secret, keep your shame inside. And I think all we can do is just continue to be a voice and continue to do the work that we do, especially what Ashley does. And I sit on a community that's trying to disperse this money that's been given through the Purdue Pharma lawsuit, and it's almost like I'm watching a bunch of kindergartners fight over a piece of cheese on the playground. I mean, it's just like
Right.
ridiculous. And it's the bigger organizations that are reaching in to get the majority of the money, and nobody's listening when I'm saying we're failing to see the small organizations, the podcasters, the online people that are doing things day to day in the community, touching the people. And we're failing to see how important that is, because we want to say, oh, we gave it to this organization that's on, drug court, and we gave it to this organization, because most of them, and this is just the honesty about it, are set up to look like they're doing great things. But if you get on the inside, you start to discover that it's not so much that way, and that's what gets disheartening. So for it's I think about Ashley a lot when I am going through these things, because I know that, Ashley, you spend your most of your time in that type of setting, and I think of just how hard it is on my heart sometimes to see that. It makes me grateful that you're living in your purpose, and that you're continuing to be out there and to be a voice for your state and the people, because you're also, like I introduced Pamela, a
You
lover
like
of
need to be able
humanity.
to put Ashley in your pocket and
I
just
need
bring her around with you.
desperately. I'd love to just, y'all think y'all got something? Hold on. Just wait a second. I'm fixing to
Right.
pull out
Or
what's
just have
really
like a
happening.
speaker in your ear and be like,
I know
what do we do?
I'm gonna have to set something up with her. I got that next community meeting on the 14th of February, and it's like, Just
Yeah,
Ashley,
give me the numbers, Ashley.
right. Just
so I can
just
spew them out. Yeah.
let me say something that makes sense to them, Ashley. Help me.
The interesting
yeah.
part of what Jason said is I think we're now at 30 recovery community organizations in the state of Florida. We're also the state that has the most treatment providers of anyone. And I'm telling you, we're not seeing it there. So it's
Wow.
the advocacy and the advocates that you have. It's not in the work that they're doing, and that's amazing. And pat yourself on the back, Jason, because you're one of them. But
Mhm.
it's not the situation that we all live in.
Right.
And that's even, I wish it was even half of the states had that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
She still doesn't
Trained
say what NPR
professionals.
is.
She didn't hear what We want to know what NPR is, Bridge.
I
Tell us.
finally found it, but it never really says what the letters stand for. It's
Well,
npr.org.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
National Public Radio, dude.
Right.
I went further. I went further.
Down the rabbit hole.
I keep scrolling.
I went further, and it's still never. It just talks about basically the microdosing and
Mhm.
of psychedelics and different types, but it never says what the letters.
What the
actually
acronym
are.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
frustrating.
maybe she heard me or heard us this time. 'Cause she must have left.
Yeah, she
and
got a
then
phone
came
call
back.
or something before.
It came back.
I have her number. We can call her back.
Phone line to Bridge is open.
Tell us. She would be the first ever person to get called by Recovery
Right.
Revolution Live.
That's right.
It's not a call in. We're calling you.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Outstanding.
Um,
Man, I
found
feel like I could do this all
NPR,
night,
but-
you guys.
I know. You found it too, Ashley, but it doesn't.
No, it's on the back end of stuff, but it's all National Public Radio stuff.
I know.
It's not
right?
like
Like
I've
you gotta
never
start.
heard.
Yeah, you got to start getting into some kind of scary places on Google to start trying to find it. Oh, okay. Oh,
Okay, but you
Mm.
still didn't tell us what NPR means.
Okay,
I need to know.
because so she's saying that it's a new wave of interest and they're claiming to offer this option for PTSD treatment and it's
Yeah.
dangerous because they're not qualified
Right.
doctors. So then we're saying we are open to it by trained professionals,
yes.
trained
I'm gonna-
qualified
Yes.
professionals.
I'm gonna put her
Or
original
Or maybe
comment
she's
back up.
talking about something that she heard on NPR about that with
Well, she said,
Dr. Gabor Mate or
but
something.
her new thing is dangerous because they're not qualified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's just saying that the using psychedelics for like that type of treatment is a newer thing, is what she's saying.
But
But
it's
there
been
are
around for a long
licensed
time.
professionals doing it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
especially in the military, like veteran, they're using all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
My wife always said that she would be open to it. Like she has a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, but I think that it was maybe too soon for her. It was one of those things here when you go in a treatment center. In the assessment, you're given the one of two diagnoses, which is borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder. And, but I know that my wife deals with a lot of great depression at times. And, I know that she's always said that she would be open to it as, for someone who's, trained. So if it was in our area, I would do a ton of research. And if I found somebody
Yeah.
greatly qualified, I would definitely advocate for my wife to have that treatment.
Yeah.
One thing about diagnosis is that I know, and this is more so from the Alzheimer's unit that I worked in, more so than any other form of nursing is in the Alzheimer's unit. So a doctor would give a diagnosis to a patient so that the doctor can then prescribe a certain medication that
Right.
they have found works.
it doesn't necessarily mean that that person
Right.
has that. We had people try every kind of medication for Alzheimer's that didn't necessarily help them at all, but some of these other schizophrenic type medications would work, and the doctor wanted to try it, so they had to put down that diagnosis so that the insurance company would pay for the medicine. And then
Yeah.
we'd have family members come up and say, I didn't know that my mother had schizophrenia. It's like, no, that's for the medication so that the insurance will accept it.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Makes
happens
sense.
everywhere
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
because of the insurance the way it is, rather than the doctors being able to prescribe, off-label medications. They have to say that somebody has something. It has to be in their record when it might not necessarily be true.
That is weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That is
very.
just odd.
It is.
Yeah.
A lot of
Bec-
stuff that has to do with that too. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things about medication that just aren't understood. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, so if you have certain things like you're bipolar, SSRIs can make you manic. So that type of medication doesn't work for you, but it might work for somebody that has a certain type of depression. But also SSRIs, if you have autism, can cause you to get aggressive. So like people having the wrong diagnosis is a
Yes.
big issue. They're also using lithium for people with autism, which even though that's used for bipolar disorder, it's been showing to have really good. So we don't know
Yeah.
Right.
what the heck's. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has
Right.
different. You react to medicine is completely different, and
Yeah.
It's one
way
of the reasons I left. One of the reasons I left, medical healthcare. That's one of the many reasons, is because of, there's really, even the doctors don't have control anymore. It's all about money, and you don't know the diagnosis, if it's real or not. And there's just so much, I always say corruption, but there's just so much going on that's just wrong.
Well,
It's
that was
just
the
wrong and makes no sense.
yeah, and that was the unfortunate part about my wife having that
Yeah.
diagnosis. Is it just kind of, it was a stock thing that was put down,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of followed her, and her being
Yeah.
new in treatment, when someone said, oh, this is what's wrong with you, it was like, oh, now finally I have something to hold on to, other than I'm just completely messed up, an
Right.
individual. But then from there, we had unqualified people prescribing medications that were very interactive with each other. And I'm grateful that my wife's still alive. I'm
Yeah.
just grateful that she's still alive, because those medicines can be very, very dangerous. Like you were talking about, the interactions of things. If you don't have somebody who has knowledge about how these things interact, they could be deadly, just deadly.
and
Yeah,
there's very few people with that knowledge. Honestly, you think that psychiatrists all know it, but they don't. They got
Yeah, that's true.
Guess who writes their books in school?
Yeah,
The drug companies.
that's exactly true. That's exactly true. It's how the American Medical Association was created. That's it was. Well, we
You
could
can
get in
you can
those
get
talks.
a medication evaluation. You can request that, and they have to go through all of your medications and see, if everything that you're taking, if there's going to be an interaction with something else that another doctor or another healthcare professional gave you, that's interacting with what this doctor gave you for your heart or something else. Is it going to interact with that, or do we need to switch the doses around or change the medication, or is there one pill that's going to take place of these three that you're taking that that were prescribed to you many, many years ago, and you just continued to get them, and now we've got something that works better with less amount, or with less symptoms. So you can get a medication evaluation, and a lot of people don't even realize that. They just take what their doctor gives them, or whatever healthcare or mental health care professional gives them, without question. And you need to always be questioning, what is this for? And is this okay with, these are my other medications? Not just everybody assumes that they have it in front of them, that the doctors or any of these professionals have all their information in front of them. And maybe they do, but they're not looking through it all a lot of the times because they don't have time. They just see you
They
don't have an
assume that
allergy to it.
they assume it's going to be safe, you
Yeah.
know, because they're getting prescribed it, but
Yeah.
they're not realizing. Like I learned this lesson through my mom's illness, and you know, because she had palliative care doctors, she had oncology, she had, you know, physical therapy, she had all these different doctors, and they were like almost never on the same page.
Right. Yeah.
They're not. They're looking at their, you know, narrow scope. Like they're focused on their part, and they're not,
Yeah.
like really aware of the whole thing. So I think that's an awesome piece of advice, because people should, you know, that you have to be your own best advocate in life.
Amen.
So
Yeah.
And even the pharmacists will know sometimes better than the doctors. If you go up to a pharmacist and you say, you know, you might have to make an appointment, but you can go to the pharmacist and say, these are the side effects that I'm having. Is any of these medications that I'm taking causing this? Or are these, you know, any combination of these medications causing this? You know, you can utilize your pharmacy for that kind of information as well.
Absolutely.
But my little pointer, and I'm not a doctor, so this is just my opinion, is don't read the side effects up front. You can see if there's reactions between, but if you read all the side effects on what they give you of the medication, you're going to have every single side effect that's on there. But if you start seeing some weird things, or you start feeling a certain way, or I mean, I'm not saying don't look up different medications to make sure there's not a reaction. There's all kinds of programs that you can look and see that stuff, but just don't look at every side effect you could possibly get. And then
I did that with Wellbutrin, you know, when I wanted to take it for quit smoking. I said, I'm not going to look at the side effects here.
Yeah.
I'm going to have them all. I knew I would.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, and part of that too is that they are just saving themselves as well. They have to put down a lot of things that, you know, just even possibilities, just so that if it happens, they're not going to be sued. You know, well, it was in the you know, the paperwork. We told you that might happen, so it was your choice to read it or not.
That leaky butt syndrome was in the paperwork. So
well, and a lot of people don't realize like how they do these tests. Like when they do research, they want to have positive results. So they have to really select who they're gonna go after. They have to, you know, if you have certain types of other co-occurring, they're not going to want to put you in the study, because then you're going to throw the stuff off. If so it's a very select group of people, because why would they spend all this money to research something and then have negative results? So it's just something to keep in mind, especially if you have co-occurring that you probably weren't who they tested on.
The world is waking up a bit. We are becoming more trusting of ourselves and advocating for ourselves versus just blindly trusting what, you know, we've been told to trust. So that's very hopeful for me that we're having this conversation even.
Hell yeah.
Yay. Well, I love you guys.
Love you too.
I'm old and I gotta go to bed, but I love you guys so much.
Is that my cue for the outro music?
I was like, I could do this all night like 20 minutes ago, and now I'm like yawning and stuff.
I know, like I'm an early riser and I could hang out with you misfits all night long, but I'm old and gotta go to bed. I love you guys though.
Love you.
Thanks so much, Pamela. You've been amazing here tonight, as always.
Thank you.
I missed all you guys. I'm so glad to be back.
Missed your face, man.
Yeah.
Love you. And the quiet man, Brett.
Hey, it's my time to talk.
The amazing girl dad.
I feel like sometimes I get so focused on pushing the buttons that I can't put thoughts together and push buttons. So sometimes I'm a little quiet, but thank you for everybody that watched this show tonight. If you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications. We go live every Thursday night. Shout out to the people that watched us tonight on Instagram. That was our first time broadcasting to Instagram. So hopefully it went all right. I kind of changed up the layout of things on the fly to make it fit on the Instagram screen a little bit better, because those people just saw basically the little middle sliver of the video. So hopefully that was all right. Jason, you have your own podcast, sir. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I do. It's called the Way Out Podcast. There's a whole lot of content, like 333 episodes, I think we're at right now. And it's powerful recovery stories. And then some episodes are recovery power topics to help you find or jumpstart your own recovery. And then we also have the Way Out playlist. It's exclusively on Spotify, same logo. And that's a curated list from all of our great guests, songs that they picked that symbolize recovery to them. Check it out.
Awesome.
LC, you have a podcast as well. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I certainly do. The Recovery Soul Food Podcast is an awakened recovery podcast. We just try to help navigate people through that soul awakening that we all seem to be going through in this beautiful recovery movement. And so we have stories of hope there. We have guidance on healing and trauma related things. So check out Recovery Soul Food. And also we're doing the Deeper Truth Healing Hour right here on Recovery Revolution Live on Saturday nights now. So you can check out those things here on Recovery Revolution Live at Lona Curry on Facebook, and yeah, all the iTunes and all the stuff. Go check it out.
Nice. And I also have my own podcast. I think the only person who, Ashley, when are you going to start a podcast?
I know.
Never.
I kid. Never. I have a podcast as well. I just actually started back up yesterday. I took the month of January off to spend a little bit of time with my newborn daughter, but I just started back up on Recovery Survey. It has been coined as Morsels of Recovery. I do like little 30-minute episodes, so check that out. We also release the audio from the live stream as a podcast as well. So if you can't sit here and look at us the whole time, but you want to take us with you, you can also download the audio version of this podcast on your favorite podcast player. I think that's everything, guys. So we will see you guys next Thursday night with another incredible guest and more amazing recovery talk. Remember, guys, progress, not perfection.
Nice.
Outstanding.